Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 383 of the All Dolphins podcast for this Thursday, October 17th, 2024. We are back. Kind of feeling yucky yesterday. I wasn't at the hospital or anything like that. Wasn't feeling great. So instead of giving you a poor quality episode, like they're not all poor quality, I'm sorry. But more so than usual, decided it'd be best to just take a vet rest day. How about that?
There you go, baby. There you go.
I most definitely qualify as a vet. So we are back. Anyway, we are back. Enough with the foolishness. We are back on this Thursday. We're going to be talking about the Dolphins. Pretty healthy, actually, more so than their opponents on Sunday at Lucas Oil Stadium. The Colts, we're going to be talking all sort of trade foolishness that's going out and about because it's that time of year. And then we'll talk, I guess, about whatever else is on Perk's mind. We will start with the Thursday injury report, which came out not too long ago. And for the Dolphins, it's the same as yesterday with three minor changes. The first two involve Teron Armstead and Calais Campbell basically being off the injury report because they weren't injured on Wednesday when they did not practice. They were just giving, like me, a vet rest day. New name on the injury report, however, is tackle Kendall Lamb, surfaced today with an elbow injury, listed as limited. As I always make a point to point out. That's bad phrasing, but I can't think of anything else right now. When you see a player, especially on a Thursday or Friday, who pops up on the injury report after not having been there before, usually a sign that he got it hurt at practice. Don't know the severity of it. Kendall Lamb would think is still the number 2 tackle, left tackle, even though Patrick Paul was the one who got the start. Oh, was it against the Tennessee Titans? I want to say in the Monday night game, and it was exactly a learning experience. In fact, Butch Barry was among the 5 assistant coaches who spoke to the media on Thursday, and he was asked about Patrick Paul's first start, and he basically said, well, he was a good learning experience.
Yeah, and that's what Frank Smith said, and that's basically what Patrick Paul said when I asked him in the locker room. And as we've said, this Dolphins coaching staff is so glowingly over the top that for them to be kind of neutral means he didn't play very well.
Correct. Yeah, if the most positive things you can say about it is a learning experience. And again, this should not necessarily be a major surprise, nor should it be an alarm, sound the alarm time, because again, the idea when the Dolphins drafted him, he wasn't drafted for 2024, he was drafted for 2025 and beyond. Okay, now if we're talking about Patrick Paul in the same vein at this time next year, then we're going to have problems. The rest of the injury reports, I guess, as I mentioned, is the same as it was Wednesday, which is to say 5 other players were limited, including safety Javon Holland, who's got some sort of glove fitted with protective pieces around the first two fingers. Mohamed Kamara is an ankle injury. Linebacker David Long Jr. knee injury. Emmanuel Ogbah bicep. Safety Jordan Poyer shin. Again, limited after limited. That kind of leaves to me a major question mark as to whether those guys are playing. With Holland, what's your gut tell you as far as his availability?
Well, I'll say this: Javon had a new device on today. It was kind of like a weightlifting glove where all the fingers were exposed before, and it didn't look like there was that piece of plaster or the hard thing over the 2 fingers. It looked like it was just like a weightlifting glove where it goes up to the second knuckles, and then the fingers are exposed a little bit. I don't know, Poop. My gut tells me he's going to play. My gut tells me he's going to give it a shot. He was out there today with that glove on his left hand, catching. He caught one pass one-handed. The other drill, the drill. Yes, when they were going through that drill, he did that. But the other times he didn't get a ball thrown his direction. I think he's going to give it a go.
Okay, and this is where there's a lot to untangle when it comes to Javon Holland. Because I wrote about this on Miami Dolphins on SI.com, where you can find all of my written work, and there's a lot of it. And Perk's content and columns can be found on sunsentinel.com, and certainly encourage everyone to read me first, and then you go to Perk.
No paywall on your stuff.
Oh wow, I wasn't even gonna go there, but it's the truth. But hey, read all of that we have to write. We put a lot of work and effort into it and some consideration, some thoughts. So by all means, please check the work out. We do appreciate it. But I wrote about Javon Holland, and the elephant in the room, this is a guy who wants a new contract. Mm-hmm. That's part A of the equation. Part B, there was some chatter late last year. In fact, Javon Holland himself said he was dealing with the knee injuries, plural, from that game on Black Friday against the Jets. And then if you recall, I want to say it was the Buffalo game, week 18, he kind of pulled himself out of the game because he felt he couldn't produce at a higher level, at which time I said, that's great. It's very unselfish, but shouldn't that be a coach's decision, not yours? Now, if you're saying I can't play because it's too painful, that's one thing. If you're saying, well, I can't play to the level I want, again, to me, that wasn't his call to make. That's the coach's call to make. So, and Holland also has seen the Dolphins not give new contracts in their contract year to Christian Wilkins, to Robert Hunt, who were two original draft picks who wound up leaving via free agency. And I think we're naive if we want to suggest that has no bearing whatsoever on Holland's desire, willingness to push through and play. Am I wrong?
You're correct. You're correct. But there's two ways to look at this. Number one, I know Javon doesn't want to put bad stuff on film. So we get that. But number two, Poop, if you want to re-sign with the Dolphins, wouldn't being a gutty player be a good way that I'm playing when I'm less than 100%? I know the team needs me. I know the backup. There's a big drop-off behind me, so I'm going to gut it out anyway. That would be a good thing to do, but then that gets back to, well, they didn't re-sign Hunt. They didn't re-sign Wilkins. They're not going to re-sign me, so I'm not going to put bad stuff on film. I really don't know how to look at it, but it could go either way on that one. But boy, there's a lot to interpret right there. There's a lot of room for interpretation.
Yeah, and I know Javon Holland spoke to the media on Wednesday. I could not be out there. Nobody asked him about his contract situation amid the injury. Chances are he may have tap danced around it, because I don't know that he's going to say, yeah, I'm not going out there and jeopardizing my health when the Dolphins didn't take care of Wilkins. He wouldn't say that. He just flat out wouldn't say that. You'd get the PC answer. But to me, there's no way that it's not a factor. And again, this is a guy who's also seen the Dolphins take care of Tua, take care of Tyreek Hill, take care of Jalen Ramsey. By the way, Jalen Ramsey had 2 years left on his contract. Tyreek Hill had 2 years left on his contract. Mike McDaniel, even though he's not a player, Mike McDaniel had 2 years left on his contract. Yep. And the Dolphins rewarded those guys. And Holland is seeing all of that. And it's one thing for the Dolphins to take care of Tua's contract when he was heading into his fifth-year option year. It's a different thing to watch. If you think of yourself as a key player of this team, to watch Tyreek Hill with 2 years left and Jalen Ramsey with 2 years left get new contracts before they address yours.
And here's the other. We're talking about a lot of stuff to unpack. Javon Holland's agent, David Mulugheta, is also Christian Wilkins' agent. Mulugheta is an excellent agent. This dude will get you paid. He is one of the top agents in the league. So again, with Javon not wanting to put bad stuff on film for other teams, I don't know what his agent's role was in that, if any. But Javon is a pretty sharp guy. And I think he can figure things out for himself. I think he's whatever, I think Javon did what's best for Javon. I'll put it that way. Now, you can say that's selfish or whatever, but I do think in the end, Javon did what's best for Javon.
Correct. And again, this is where I think we need to be really clear with the fans, that the reality and what's going to be said publicly are going to be two different things.
Yes.
Okay. Let's be honest about this, because then there's certain things you get a certain level of transparency from coaches and GMs and players and all that. There are certain things that you just can't say and that they will not say. And then the other example that Javon Holland can look to is Connor Williams, who played last year on his contract year and tore his ACL. And then the Dolphins were like, we don't know about your future, so we'll go ahead and sign Aaron Brewer instead. So good luck to you, Connor. And he wound up not signing until July with the Seattle Seahawks, getting a contract that was a lot lower value than he would have gotten as an extension last year had the Dolphins taken care of it. So I think those are factors to be considered. It's not purely whether Javon Holland can play, can tolerate the pain, and can he be effective, even though he may not be able to catch. And as Anthony Weaver made an interesting point, it's the third safety of the Dolphins who's had like dealing with a cast on a hand this summer after Jordan Poyer and after Marcus May. I mean, I don't know what the hell there's in the water in the safety room. They need to clean it out or get a better filter or something, because this is weird.
Yeah, and you know what? Both of those guys, I think Poyer's was entirely during training camp. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure how many joint practices he did. Marcus May has played games with the thumb, so I don't know what that means for Javon Holland, but we've seen it kind of go both ways with the Dolphins and those hand injuries with the safeties.
Yeah, but the bottom line, going back to the original point, which was the injury report, is that every single solitary member of the 53-man roster was at practice today. In addition to Cam Smith, who again is still on IR, but he's been designated to return. This is his third week of practice, and he's been listed as a full participant the first 2 days. So possibility certainly exists. The Dolphins could activate him on Saturday, at which point they're going to have to make a move to create a roster spot. And doesn't look like they don't have anybody who needs to go on IR. So this could be a cut situation if that's what the Dolphins wind up doing. Now, on the flip side, the Colts are dealing with their own injuries. It's not as bad as their injury report from Wednesday, when they had 9 guys missing practice because of injuries. Today was down to 3 as I look, but one of those is Jonathan Taylor, who again did not practice with a high ankle sprain. Those things usually are 4 to 6 weeks. This will be week 3. My gut feeling says he's not playing. Anthony Richardson's no longer basically an issue, even though, I mean, we'll mention him because he is on the injury report, but he was a full participant again. Along with Jonathan Taylor, one of the 2 guys who didn't practice Thursday is a new guy on the list. That's Alec Pierce, their wide receiver who leads the NFL in yards per reception. Per Stephen Holder of ESPN, as told to the All Dolphins podcast on the Behind Enemy Lines edition. Please check it out, episode 382. So this one's interesting because he didn't practice at all, which means it was something that's popped up overnight, because he wasn't even on the injury report Wednesday. So that's something to monitor. The other one, that see if you remember the name, Perk, I'll give you the player's name. Give me the position. Chris Lamons with an ankle injury didn't practice for the second consecutive day.
Oh, he was a DB, right? Safety?
There he goes. Actually, he's a corner.
Corner.
Had some cup of coffee with the Dolphins once upon a time. That's why I mentioned the name. Yeah. Outside of that, a whole bunch of their players went from DNP to limited. That includes Josh Downs, Ryan Kelly, and then Michael Pittman, who had a back injury and didn't practice Wednesday, was a full participant. So if you look at the 2 teams, the Dolphins in much better shape health-wise. Again, we're talking about the active roster. And even if we wanted to go there and include the entire roster, which is where Dolphin fans are going to throw out Tua and Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, and those are key pieces, no doubt. The Colts have their issues mostly on the defensive line with DeForest Buckner, Samson Ekobon, and they have, I want to say, those are the 2 guys who jump out. But health-wise, usually if you look at the active roster, Dolphins are in good shape heading into this game.
I think Jonathan Taylor for both teams is the big one, right? DeForest Buckner is huge, but Jonathan Taylor, for what he does for the Colts and what he could do to the Dolphins, to me, that's the biggest one to monitor.
Absolutely. Let's move on to topic number 2, the trades and the speculation. Love this. This is a great time of year because the trade deadline's coming up November 5th. Already a couple of big trades in the AFC East this week, with Amari Cooper going from the Cleveland Browns to the Buffalo Bills. Devontae Adams going from the Raiders to the New York Jets. So now every national media outlet's coming up with their trade proposals, either that they'd like to see that would be fun or that would make sense for both teams. And those that have been mentioned involving the Dolphins, and Perk, I want to get your take on all of those one by one after the fact, but we'll start. It include quarterback Trey Lance being acquired, quarterback Bryce Young coming to the Dolphins, running back Jeff Wilson leaving the Dolphins, being traded to the San Francisco 49ers, Emmanuel Ogbah being a trade candidate, And then earlier there was Russell Wilson maybe being somebody the Dolphins would want to trade for, and except now he's in line to become the new starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers now that his calf injury has healed. So let's start with the one that jumps out to me, of course. This was suggested by Bill Barnwell from ESPN. Dolphins sending the Carolina Panthers a 2025 conditional fourth-round pick for Bryce Young. Your thoughts on that idea?
Absolutely ridiculous. Just absolutely
ridiculous. Pissed off Perk. I like it.
Well, not pissed off Perk, but look, we just saw, by the way, happy 1 month anniversary to Snoop Huntley. Welcome. We just saw what happens when you have a quarterback in this system who hasn't been in it long, right? With Tim Boyle and with Snoop Huntley. You're really going to give up a draft pick to go through this experiment again? No. Here's what I would do. I would just ride it out for the rest of this season at quarterback. And then next year, if you have Super Bowl hopes, I'm going to get a veteran backup. Joe Flacco, Andy Dalton, somebody who I can turn this team over to with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all of these guys, and we can keep it moving. I'm not turning it over to, with all due respect, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, who you're not going to finish high enough to draft anyway, Quinn Ewers from Texas. I'm not turning this team over to an unproven rookie. I'm not. As a backup, I'm just not. It's too high of a draft pick, and he's unproven. I'm going to take the proven because I'm trying to win a Super Bowl still. Now, if this was the Flo team or a Gase team or a Philbin team, then yeah, I would draft somebody in the first round or whatever. But no, I need a steady hand if Tua goes down to take over this team. They had the right idea with Teddy Bridgewater. It just didn't work out. But, look, if you can find somebody in the offseason, if you choose to keep Skyler and keep developing him, okay. But I want to go into the season with a backup quarterback who has been in my program for months, not weeks.
Love it. I love it.
I'm very passionate about that, if you couldn't tell.
I love it. Okay, and you mentioned Teddy Bridgewater, and I'm going to go there. Yes, I am going to go there.
All right.
Because you mentioned it didn't work out. Well, it didn't work out because he got hurt. And this is where, and I had a little discussion with folks on Twitter yesterday as I was dealing with a headache the entire day, and maybe it contributed to it. I don't know, maybe. But it's like, again, it was always about, well, Dolphins don't win without Tua, point blank, period, end of story. No, again, stop it with that. Okay, in 2022, the Dolphins lost their 3 games. They were 1-3 in the regular season without Tua. In 3 games, they have a total of 8 snaps for Teron Armstead in those 3 games, and they had 0 takeaways on defense. Yeah. For those who want to say Teddy Bridgewater sucked, it was clear the offense didn't look the same. Fine, the offense didn't look the same. But if you're going to go ahead that he sucked, and then I'm going to turn around and say, oh, he sucked, his stats in the 5 appearances he had projected over 17 games to 5,300 passing yards. That's 5,300. Tyreek didn't do anything with Bridgewater. What do you do with Bridgewater? Tyreek's stats with Bridgewater as his quarterback projected to 2,300 yards, 2,300. Well, the sample size is so small, it's ridiculous. Okay, well, if the sample size is so small that it's ridiculous to do stat projection, it's also too small to make a judgment on Teddy B sucking as a backup. Okay, that's ridiculous. Yep. The problem with Teddy B is he couldn't stay healthy, and as proof, forget the fact that he never started and finished a game. He never even played 3 quarters in a game in his 5 appearances. Okay, now that was 2022. The problem this year is the drop off, and this is what I had said that got me a bunch of arrows in my direction. I said the drop off from Tua to Teddy Bridgewater, given that his experience and the guy had been a starting in the NFL, would not be nearly as significant as a lot of fans would think. And I still stand on that. The problem is he always got hurt. Now, the drop-off from Tua to Skylar Thompson or Tyler Huntley is huge because you have 2 guys who are pedestrian. I'm going to be polite. Who should not be number 2 quarterbacks. But Tyler, so in this offense, Tyler Huntley is fine as a number 2 quarterback if he's playing in the Baltimore Ravens offense, which is run-centric and then scrambling for the quarterback like Lamar Jackson does. Okay, end of meeting rant for me. Okay, and my take on the Bryce Young, I don't have a massive issue with it, only in the sense of potentially long-term, maybe this guy figures it out and you get him on the cheap, not as a number 2 guy for Tua. So I'm totally with you there. And conditional fort's a little high for me. But if Carolina really wants to dump him and you can give him a 6 for him, see if you can salvage his career. And I mean, obviously, he wasn't a complete scrub at Bama. So I don't think that there would be, to me, no harm in taking that shot, but not counting on him as being your number 2 quarterback. The next one is, go ahead.
I'll say one thing, Poop. The Dolphins this offseason, whoever they take at backup quarterback, make sure that he can do some of the same things that Tua does from the standpoint of quick read and quick release. And none of these other backups have had those same qualities. I know Snoop gets the ball out of his hand quickly, but Teddy Bridgewater, Skyler, Tim Boyle, Snoop, you need somebody more like Tua, or you need to be willing to change your offense a little bit to play to that backup quarterback's strengths. One or the other, we can't continue the way that it's been going the last, and during the McDaniel era. You've got to make a better choice on your backup quarterback or making an adjustment to fit his talents better.
Or get somebody more qualified than, again, the guys who are on the roster right now. Emmanuel Ogba, the idea, this was NFL.com, I believe. And the idea was like Dolphins could be in a rebuild mode very quickly. And then maybe you try to get a draft pick for him. He's signed to the end of this year, and that's it. I'll address this one first. Why? Why would the Dolphins possibly, unless they're going to get a second or a first for him, why would they actually need pass rushers right now? They don't need to be dumping them. Emmanuel Ogba makes like $3.2 million. He's been their best edge defender. And are we really believing the Dolphins are going to be in tank mode by the trade deadline when they have all these high-priced players like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey and Jalen Waddle and Tua? Yeah, not buying that one at all.
No, Bradley Chubb is going to return. We don't know what he'll look like. Jalen Phillips will be back next year. We don't know what he'll look like. You did draft Chop Robinson. You did draft Mo Kamara. So, let's see how they turn out. But, yeah, you need Ogba for this season. I'm not giving up an edge rusher. You need those guys. This team has 9 sacks. That's, I believe, tied for third fewest in the NFL. I'm not giving up the guy who can best get the quarterback onto the ground. No, not happening.
Okay, without question. And since you mentioned Chop Robinson, this is where I'll point out where defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver was asked about Chop Robinson, as he's asked about him pretty much every single solitary time he speaks with the media. And it was the same line that he's making progress. Called the New England game maybe his best game so far with the way he set the edge. Also had a pressure on a third down incompletion. But again, still waiting for that first sack. And right or wrong, a lot of fans are going to be looking at that. For me, I look, how often do I feel him or do I see him around the quarterback? And so far, it's been not nearly enough.
Right, and he's not setting the edge well enough on the run. So it's, look, you're a first-round pick, and so that's why there's going to be so much pressure and scrutiny on you. If you're a fourth-round pick, fifth-round pick, okay, he's got some time to develop. You didn't draft him thinking he's going to be an instant impact player, but first-round pick when you knew that Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb could possibly be sidelined for the start, for the opener, yeah, he's got to be better. Chop has got to be better.
The other one, Dolphins sending out, I believe, I want to say it was a 5th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys for Trey Lance because of the history with Mike McDaniel from their time together in San Francisco in 2021. Am I getting passionate or pissed off?
It is. Yeah, you can run it back. Again, you can't have somebody in this system for a few weeks and expect them to excel. Like, listen, I've asked Tim Boyle about this. I've asked Jalen Waddle about this. What makes this system so tough? And they say the shifts and the motions and the quick reads and all this kind of stuff. This is a different offense, and you need to spend time in it. And bringing in, especially at quarterback, you just can't bring somebody in that quickly. Look, I think OBJ is going to struggle early, and I think Frank Smith kind of alluded to that when I asked about OBJ today, and he basically said, we've got to bring him along at his pace. You can't expect anybody to come in here and be instant impact, and I think that's especially true at quarterback. So no, I'm not bringing Trey Lance in here in week 7 with the idea he can serve as the backup quarterback. Not happening.
No, and I'm in the same boat again. And for me, it's again taking a shot. Again, McDaniel probably knows Trey Lance very well from their time together in 2021 when he was a rookie. If you can trade a lower round pick, and again, to me, like a 5 or a 6, generally speaking, those guys don't necessarily pan out. They can, but more often than not, they won't. If that's the investment you make in taking a shot on a guy who could develop into something. I mean, San Francisco traded up. If you remember, that's a guy they took when they moved up from 12 to 3, giving the Dolphins 2 future first-round picks to make that swap.
Yep.
They obviously saw something, and he's not as much of a scheme mismatch as Bryce Young because he played under the Kyle Shanahan offense in San Francisco. But the other factor in this one also, where I can see where Carolina might want to move on from Bryce Young. Why would Dallas traded a 4th-round pick to get him last August?
Right.
There was a reason they did that. Why would they want to trade him? And again, I don't want him right now, as that dude hasn't played since early last season. I don't want him as number 2 right now at all. And then the other one was Jeff Wilson being sent back to the 49ers. And as I wrote in my analysis piece on Miami Dolphins on SI.com, why would the Dolphins do that other than and that proposed trade was Jeff Wilson and a 7 for a 6. Ooh. So you're going to tell me you have a very, very good 4th running back. I'm going to guess probably the best 4th running back in the NFL.
Yep. And
you're going to give him up to get a 6 instead of a 7. Why would you do that other than what, you owe Kyle Shanahan something? I don't know.
I think the only reason that the Dolphins would do it is if they feel good about their running back depth. But here's why I wouldn't do it. I don't feel good about their running back depth. Raheem Mostert has already missed 3 games. Devon Achane was in concussion protocol, and the only other guy that you have is the rookie. I like the way the rookie looked, but he's a rookie. So, again, you're trying to win a Super Bowl this year and next year. I just can't give away assets like that. I need to have a guy like Jeff Wilson. As you said, he's got to be the best 4th running back in the NFL, probably, no question. And even he's had a right knee injury this year.
All right.
These guys don't stay healthy, so you need as many of them as you can. Stack them. I'm not getting rid of Jeff Wilson.
Correct, and certainly not for that. And because this idea of to me, like, any player can be traded if the offer is good enough. But that offer it's nothing. I mean, seriously, no, big no.
One quick question for you, Poop. We know that the NFL trade deadline in recent years has become more and more active. We saw the Dolphins trade for Jeff Wilson and Bradley Chubb 2 years ago. You mentioned the ones we just saw. Do you think the Dolphins do anything? A guard, a D tackle? Do you think they acquire anybody? I don't think they give anybody away. Maybe they do. I don't think they do. But do you think they acquire anybody? Should they acquire anybody?
You stole my line. I was going to ask you that.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I can ask myself. We can switch sides.
Well, okay, here you go. Hold on.
Right.
Let me go over here. Okay.
Exactly. There we go.
Well, here's the thing. The trade deadline will come after week 9, which is, and the Dolphins game on November 3rd happens to be against our friends, the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
That's going to be after 8 games for the Dolphins. So their record at the time will be either 5-3, could be 4-4, could be 3-5, or it could be 2-6.
Yep.
If they're 2-6, and again, the idea of like a fire sale a lot of the big name players for the Dolphins are signed even beyond next year. They're not trading Tyreek Hill if they're even if they're 2-6. It doesn't make any sense. They wouldn't trade Jalen Ramsey. Because what are you doing for next year? It wouldn't make any sense. And then, so I don't see the Dolphins being sellers under any scenario. Could I see them being buyers? Absolutely, especially if they're 5-3 or they're 4-4 or even 3-5. Remind me to address the whole issue of Musk game here, because this was actually what started the whole back and forth on Twitter. I don't know that I see them going for an offer guard though, because again they keep projecting and talking, and the way they're making their roster move. It's not just their words, their actions too, kind of scream to us, we're okay with what we have. We think we can make it work. So I don't know that they're going to be making any moves for that. And I'm trying to think of the other positions they could go for.
D tackle, interior D line.
Maybe, yeah. If there's somebody who becomes available who's not going to be, overly pricey, I could see them doing that. But I don't see them making a move for an interior offensive lineman.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know how realistic the hopes are that Isaiah Wynn returns. I'm getting that's getting very thin. But I guess if there's a hope that Isaiah Wynn returns, then that's even more motivation not to make a move for an interior lineman.
Correct. And then we asked, as I mentioned earlier, today we had 5 assistant coaches who spoke. It was the 3 coordinators, as always, every week: Anthony Weaver, Frank Smith, and Danny Crossman. Today we also got offensive line coach Butch Barry and cornerbacks coach Matthew Arahujo. Apologies for mispronouncing. Arahujo.
Arujo, maybe, I think, but I'm not sure.
Matthew A. Apologize.
Yes, there you go.
And Butch Barry was asked about his thoughts on the way the interior offensive linemen are playing. And basically the answer is they're making strides. I mean, again,
it was he was asked, are your guards playing up to your standard? And there was a long pause. And then it was like, well, they're doing the best they can and blah, they're making progress, blah, blah, blah. But the word yes did not appear in that answer.
No. And again, this is a coaching staff that's been, safe to say, instructed not to criticize. So there's no way we're going to get, not been good enough. And I don't think there would be any, if you're not naming names, this is a group of players. I don't think there would be anything wrong with saying, it's been okay, but it can be better. They're making strides. Not that it's necessary, anything like that. So I put out on Twitter the notion of must-win game annoys me, because there's no such thing as a must-win game unless it's a game where you're eliminated if you lose it. And then I pointed out that the Dolphins, if they lose, they're going to be 2-4. Green Bay Packers were 2-5 last year, made the playoffs. And of course, it's like, well, the Dolphins are not the Packers. Dolphins don't have Jordan Love. This is a bad organization. But that's not the point. The point is, and there are other examples. For example, the Dolphins in 2016 were 1-4, right, and they were sucking big time at 1-4. And they basically cut 3 offensive linemen the day after they lost against Tennessee to get to 1-4. And boom, all of a sudden it turned around and they went 10-6 and made the playoffs. So again, I get, because right now people are just so caught up in the moment.
Right.
Dolphins have not played well. It's looked bad. I'm pretty confident it's not going to look this bad this way the entire season. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to make the playoffs. I don't know. But that this notion that if they wind up being 2-4 because they lose to the Colts, they're done. No, because we don't know what they're going to look like. And somebody accused me of being hypocritical because in their words, I dump on Tua all the time. Not true. And then I'm expecting him to save the season. Not true either. But I'm expecting the offense to certainly achieve a higher level of efficiency in the passing game with Tua than with Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson, with the addendum of Sorry, go ahead.
Well, Poop, you are bravely battling 2 very strong forces here. Number one, conventional NFL wisdom, which says the way things are today are the way things are and the way they'll always be. It'll never change. This is the NFL season. That's very hard to fight. And then number two, you're trying to add subtlety and nuance to social media. Social media is, again, you're on this end or you're on this end. It's right. It's very extreme. So my hat is off to you for trying to fight that. But that's some uphill sledding on your part, Poop.
Man, even when I, for the past couple of years, after the second McDaniel came in and Tua's career started to take off, it was always, why does it have to be Tua sucks or Tua is the best passer in the NFL?
Right.
Why can it be somewhere in the middle? Like, my Lord, Jesus.
Can't be. No, can't. Absolutely can't. I know. It's right. If you aren't saying something glowing and over the top about Tua, if you say something neutral, you're a Tua hater.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that, but that's the way it is. That's where we are right now. That's kind of where social media lives, and you just kind of have to deal with it.
Yeah, and the other part of it, gang, I get it. Dolphins have not looked good for a long time. The last time they looked like a really, really good team was Jets game last year in December at home. Even before, even the Dallas game, they looked okay. I mean, they got kind of lucky to win the game 22-20. I totally get that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they can't get back to this level. Why is it that they can't possibly get back to this level in 2024 once they get a lot of their guys back? Not saying that they will, but why is it impossible that they won't, So, and again, it could start. It obviously would make their lives easier if they could beat the Colts, who are not a great team, but they can be problematic. It's not going to be an easy game, but if it can beat the Colts, they're 3-3. And right now at 2-3, they're half a game behind the last playoff spots in the loss column. So it's not like they have an insurmountable road that they have to travel,
Correct. And look, this is a team in the Dolphins that is capable of getting hot and reeling off 3 or 4 consecutive victories, especially if you look at the schedule, you look at Tua returning. It's within the realm of believability. And the other thing is look, if the Dolphins offense, when Tua gets back, and we're assuming, as you all know, Tua can practice next Wednesday, October 23rd. He can play a week from Sunday, October 27th, the home game against Arizona. I think that he hits both those deadlines. I think he plays. But if the offense is not scoring 30, 40, and 45 in the first 3 games, chill out for a little bit. It's going to take Tua some time. Look, remember, Tua right now has 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. It's not like he was burning it up when he went out. So this whole thing is going to take some time. It's probably not going to look the way it did mid-2023, the second Tua returns. But I would say just give it some time. And, I'm not like pro Dolphins. I consider myself neutral. I consider you neutral, Poop. People probably don't consider us that, but I consider us both neutral. I say give this thing a little bit of time even after Tua returns.
No, correct. I get fandom. I really get it. And I get the frustration of Dolphin fans who've been through this. It's been 24 years since they won a playoff game, for Christ's sake. But again, just because the season started off as an extension of the die from last year, it doesn't mean that it can't turn back up. I mean, again, give it a chance. We're still in mid-October. It's a long season. So anyway,
not to drive the show into a ditch, which I often do.
Too late for that.
I wrote today that this is kind of a referendum on Mike McDaniel and whether he can coach. This it's not a final exam, but it's a big midterm. What are you expecting from Mike McDaniel in this game and for the rest of the season? And how do you think he's done so far this season?
Oh, man.
That's a big one, huh? That's a lot to bite off.
Man, that is a lot to bite off.
I'll go first. Look.
And I'll just say what you said. So the perfect.
All right. Look, I've said that I think that this team has underachieved and disappointed. And the numbers that I always cite with McDaniel is 22-19. He was 1-6 last year against playoff teams. They got beat by an average score of 32-16 in those 7 games, 3-12 against playoff teams entering this season. And I was saying that it's easy to say that the bad outweighs the good. What is the good? Well, the offense is good. It's innovative. Tua is good. Tyreek is good. He has united that building, right? It wasn't united when Flo was there. He has fired up the fan base. He's given you reason for hope. So I tried to account for both sides. And I have gone on record before saying I think McDaniel is a good coach, but sometimes I find myself wondering, like now, when I see the backup quarterback position and I see that you're not utilizing tight end as good as you could or slot receiver. So I do think that he's a good coach, but boy, sometimes I waver. And I think that good coaches coming off of a bye, I know you're going on a road game where, it's the NFL. You're not expected to win all of your road games. But boy, you could use this one and you're coming off of a bye. I think that you should win this game. Again, it's not going to mean that McDaniel is not a good coach. It's a big midterm. It's not the final.
What Perk said. No. I have to say something different. Well, funny you should mention buys because I wrote about this Monday on MiamiDolphinsOnSide.com, and check out Perk's column at SunSentinel.com. Dolphins, are you aware, are on a 4-game winning streak in post-bye games. However, with the caveat that all 4 of those games were at home. This will be the first time they're on the road.
That's good. That's a good note right there. On the road.
You can use it on SunSentinel.com. Just give me credit for it.
It might appear. It might appear with credit. That's a good note.
I'm kind of with you for the most part. It's impossible to say that Mike McDaniel is not a good coach just because they come up short. I think is unfair because, again, he's done a lot of good things.
Right.
Starting with making something out of Tua when his first 2 years were rather forgettable.
Yep.
And then the innovative offense as well. Where I think situationally at times McDaniel gets stubborn.
Yes.
And not so much this year. It's tough this year because it's different because they lost to us so early. But there were times last year when it seems he got away from the run too quickly for my taste, and he needs to resist that temptation at all times. Once again, if Tua comes back, the issues that they've had at quarterback since Tua's been out, to me, that's more on Chris Greer than it is on Mike McDaniel. Unless it was Mike McDaniel who convinced Chris Greer, Skylar Thompson's our guy at number 2. And again, I hate to slam the door on Skylar like that, but the fact is, as you and I talked about before, he looked overwhelmed in that Seattle game. And the fact that Mike McDaniel last week quickly said, when you asked him, Skylar is healed from the rib injury, you're still going with Tyler? And it was like, basically, yeah. Okay, well, that basically means that Skylar's not the answers in the route to quarterback, and you couldn't figure that out before the offseason. Not a good look. Right. So the jury's still out as to exactly just how good a coach he is. But right now, to me, he would be a good coach, but.
Right. Good way to put it.
Fair enough?
Yep.
Okay.
He scores. He shoots, he scores.
And on that but, we're going to wrap it up. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Hope you enjoyed the discussion, the nonsense that Perk and I spewed out like we always do.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap it up again, as I said. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Have a great rest of the Thursday evening, and we'll catch you guys on Friday. Thanks, Perk.
Thanks.